Today I'm going to talk a little bit about relationships. People often say that a marriage failed or a relationship failed. In my perspective, relationships and marriages, they never fail. Relationships end, but they never fail. Any time you spend interacting with someone, being intimate with someone, arguing with someone, struggling with someone, anytime you try to be in a relationship, or even try not to be in a relationship, any kind of relationship is a success, just simply because it happened. Some relationships could have been more optimally successful if they ended sooner, perhaps. But all relationships are successful. Just because a relationship ends doesn't mean it's a failure. Some relationships end because people change. Children grow older. The relationship with the 8-year-old is different from the relationship with the toddler. So the parent-child relationship changes, and effectively it ends, repeatedly ends. Relationship with your parents changes as you change, as you grow older. You have a different perspective on your parents and your relationship to them. People die. People are injured. People, even the people who are watching this, who may live to 1,000 years old because of medical advances, your relationships will end. So it's part of the characteristic of relationships that they end. They have a beginning and they have an end. And also one of the characteristics of healthy relationships is that they change. So I wanted to just share some analogies with you. There's this thing called heart rate variance, which is the way that the rate of your heartbeat changes. And it's supposed to change from beat to beat. It's supposed to speed up and slow down quite rapidly and randomly. And this is the two parts of your nervous system, the parasympathetic and the sympathetic parts of your nervous system, of your autonomous nervous system, interacting with each other. One is for healing and rejuvenation, and the other part is for fight and flight. And so they're always, this one's ready to heal, this one's ready to run away or fight, this one's ready to heal, this one's ready to run away or fight. And these two are in dynamic homeostasis. And the flexible dynamism of that homeostasis is what enables you to suddenly increase your heart rate to run away from a predator, and then slow it down and rebuild muscles and recover rapidly and fluidly. So your heart rate's changing all the time. Relationships need to change all the time to adapt to the environment, to adapt to the growth and development of the people in the relationship. And your heart rate variance will reduce and the heart rate becomes very consistent near to death. And that's one of the ways you can tell someone's going to die, because their heart rate variance becomes very low and they have very consistent heart rate. In the same way, in a relationship, when things become very stable and unchanging, the relationship is bound to end. There's bound to be a big change, a big forced change, because there isn't a natural dynamic change. And the other analogy I wanted to give you is around, so like, there's this whole analogy that you probably heard a lot, which is the bamboo in the wind. So the wind comes along and it's really blowing hard, and there's a tree that's strong and inflexible, and the wind just blows it down. And then there's some bamboo or some flexible, like a willow, flexible wood that gives and bends and doesn't get blown down, right? And so, but there's also this element of like, if you take a piece of steel and you bend it one way and then you bend it back, and then it's flexible, but what happens is that inside the metal, the lattice of the metal starts to build up tensions inside there where it's being bent one way and bent the other way. This is called work hardening in materials science. And what will happen is, if you keep doing that, after a while it will snap. Same thing if you're making a samurai sword or just a sword and you're hammering it, the steel. You hammer the steel and fold it over and keep hammering it in order to create structures in the lattice which produce a very sharp, fine edge on the sword. If you just were to take that sword and then just hit something with it, it would probably shatter because it has a lot of tensions inside the structure of the metal. So there's this thing called annealing, which is where you heat the material slowly and then let the material cool slowly. And what this does is when it heats up, it allows the tensions, the internal tensions, to be dissipated. And then as it cools down again, it reforms, recrystallizes in a more stable, stronger structure, which is called toughness. Okay, so in relationship, that would be you have struggles and difficulties, which is like bending the metal. And there's some flexing that goes on, right? But then there's these undistributed tensions. And so when we do introspective work or change work, things like therapy, couples therapy, meditation, introspection, creative expression, having an authentic, emotionally vulnerable conversation with our partner, any of these things, they're like annealing the material, where the stresses are relieved and the tensions are relieved and the material becomes tough as well as being hard. So the two things in that, there's relationships are always successful. Relationships never fail, but they do end, and all relationships end. And also the concept of flexibility, work hardening, annealing. Those analogies, you can use those, think of those analogies in your relationships and how they apply to you. And go ahead and subscribe to my channel, like, share, thumbs up, comment. Let me know if there's anything you want me to talk about or explain in more detail, and I'll see you next time.